The Jacksonville Jaguars, for the second time in 2022, sit below that 500 mark after falling to the Houston Texans 13-6. They now sit at 2-3, 1-1 in the AFC South. But this was a really weird game for the Jaguars. Would you believe me if I told you the Jaguars would put up 400 yards of offense? They would have more rushing yards than the Houston Texans. They would run almost 20 more plays than the Houston Texans, but they would not score a touchdown. They would not score a single point in the second half, and they would not win the time of possession battle in the game, and they would lose the game. What in the world? They score over 400 yards of offense and they do not win. You'd call me crazy if I told you before the game happened that would be what happened. It was a very, very weird day for the Jaguars, but we're going to break it all down right here. This game, once it came out of halftime, it felt like it would be the first team to score would win the game. And, it wouldn't be until a fourth quarter Dameon Pierce touchdown that would be the deciding score. The Jaguars could not figure out how to get anything going in the red zone. They were just time and time again not being able to convert red zone trips to touchdowns. A lot of that does sit on the quarterback's shoulders. Trevor Lawrence had a bad day. He had a very, very bad day on Sunday. 25 of 47, 2 picks, and one of them came on the last second Hail Mary, so I'm not going to nitpick one of the 2 picks. But the second pick absolutely does deserve nitpicking. He refused to take the easy stuff all game. It almost seemed like he was trying to force the game-winning play all throughout the game, and it just didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work. And that was very apparent to everyone watching the game that Trevor Lawrence was struggling, and he refused to take what was given to him. Now, all of the pressure does not need to be on Trevor Lawrence's shoulders. Trevor Lawrence put 5 catchable passes, according to PFF, on Jaguar wide receivers, and all 5 of them were dropped. Those 5 guys are Jamal Agnew, Dan Arnold, Travis Etienne, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram. Those guys, obviously, Evan Ingram came into Jacksonville with a supposed drop problem. Travis Etienne has struggled with it at times. We saw it in the Washington game. We saw it again in this game. And Dan Arnold just is Dan Arnold at this point. He's probably good for 5 drops a year. And overall, Marvin Jones, though, had a very, very productive day. Let's spin this a little bit positive here. He was the Jaguars' leading receiver with 7 catches for over 100 yards, 104 yards total off of 11 targets. He was the Jaguars' leading receiver, and he also led the Jaguars in total targets. Evan Ingram could have had a much more impactful day if it hadn't been for just some accuracy and decision-making issues from Trevor Lawrence. Ultimately, though, he did finish the day with 6 catches, almost 70 yards, 69 yards total for him. And Evan Ingram, he's becoming a good, just quality pass catcher for this Jaguars team. I've been calling for him to be more involved in the game plan, and this was a game where he was. And, the Jaguars did put up 400 yards of offense, so there is something to be said about that. Now, Christian Kirk is someone I would like to talk about for a second. And I'm going to preface what I'm about to say with this. He is still worth the money. Christian Kirk might have had 2 bad games, but he still leads the Jaguars in total receiving yards by almost 100 yards. He leads the Jaguars in yards per reception by almost 5 yards, and in touchdowns. He has 3 touchdowns, which also leads the Jaguars. Christian Kirk was worth the money. Now, yes, he has put 2 bad games in, 3 catches on 12 targets and 3 drops, and probably an obvious 0 touchdowns. But as a whole, Christian Kirk just needs to find that rhythm again. I don't know if it's defenses are focusing on stopping Kirk. I don't know what it is, but once Christian Kirk hopefully gets it going again, this Jaguars offense will hum a little bit smoother. Now, onto the running backs here. James Robinson has been, struggling to get things going a little bit. I'm not going to say he's been struggling horribly, but he is just kind of, the wheels have been turning a little bit slower than what we've seen in previous weeks thus far. We kind of saw it a little bit in the Philadelphia game. He had the weather as the excuse. This week there was no excuses weather-wise, and Travis Etienne, without a doubt, outshined him. Travis Etienne had 13 touches on Sunday, and he had his first 100 all-purpose yard day for the Jaguars. He had a very, very good day. He had 71 on the ground, and he had 40-plus through the air. He seemed like he was the hot hand very early in the game, and James Robinson has, dare I say, started to disappear a little bit, and he's kind of started to fade back a little bit, but part of that does have to do with the fact that Ben Bartch did leave the game with a second-half knee injury, and he's going on to the IR. That was reported today. But once Tyler Shatley came in, it didn't really seem like things changed a whole lot for the running attack by that point. Trevor Lawrence had kind of gone into pass-happy mode. Doug Peterson, Press Taylor had gone into pass-happy mode. So I want to say that, but I also want to give credit to this Jaguars offensive line. They absolutely deserve some kudos for this. The starting 5 did not allow a single quarterback hit in Week 5, according to PFF. The only quarterback hit came off of backup guard Tyler Shatley. So, yes, Shatley's going to be starting next week against the Colts, but for Week 5 against the Texans, you got to give the offensive line, their starting 5, their kudos for that. Now, I want to talk about something that really kind of irked me throughout this game. It was stupid stuff that irked me in this game. And, this is my part of the video where I love to talk about it if it looks very, very low, but I hate talking about it if it looks like my golf score, right? If it's super high, I hate talking about it. If it's super low, I love talking about it, and that's penalties. The Jaguars had 8 penalties called on them, and 6 of them were enforced. That's some of the higher numbers that we've heard for the Jaguars to this point. They just weren't playing disciplined football. Obviously, the most glaring one is going to be the roughing the passer call on Travon Walker that extended the drive that would ultimately go on to be the game-winning drive. So, you can play the what-if game with that there. What happens if he doesn't get it? Yes, it would have been 3rd and 15, 3rd and 10 off that other penalty that he got called for. They could have still converted, but obviously it wouldn't have been the 1st and 10 like Travon Walker afforded them. Now, while we're talking about that roughing the passer, let's go and talk about this pass rush, right? They looked lackluster throughout the game. Obviously, Josh Allen looked kind of like the Josh Allen of last year. He looked like the Josh Allen of 2020, where he just kind of had the disappearing act kind of start to appear. He didn't do a whole lot last week against the Eagles. This week, he kind of did the same again. Both of them were hovering around that, just winning about 5% of their pass rush snaps. You look to previous weeks where they were winning 15+ in the games where they were having success. And then you look at a guy like Arden Key, who won 36% of his pass rush snaps, and he still had a good amount of pass rushing snaps. It wasn't like he was just right there for 7, 8, 9 pass rushing snaps. Arden Key played very, very well in this game. And then another guy I want to talk about is Corey Peters. Obviously, let's jump into this run defense here. Corey Peters played very well for the most part, considering the fact he had limited time to know he was going in, replacing Foley Fatukasi. Big shoes to fill thus far in Jacksonville. One of the main reasons the Jaguars had the number 1 rushing defense through week 4 last week. But another guy that has been playing very, very, very well in the run game is safety Rayshawn Jenkins. Oh my goodness, this man has been playing very, very well in the run game. I'm very, very excited to see what Rayshawn Jenkins does once again, facing a lackluster Indianapolis Colts offensive line that has been struggling a little bit. Jonathan Taylor has not been able to get it going, but we're going to talk about all that here in a couple days in the preview video for the Colts. Rayshawn Jenkins had 4 stop plays, stop-worthy plays, and PFF calls a stop play as a play that constitutes a failure for the offense. Now, that is incredible. Coming from safety, he almost top 3 in the team in stop plays according to PFF, and he also had an average depth of tackle of 2.5 yards, and he had 6 tackles. So I'm absolutely loving the play I'm seeing out of Rayshawn Jenkins. And, this defense did have a very good grip on Dameon Pierce through the early parts of the game. Unfortunately, it just kind of seemed as the game wore on and the defense was on the field longer and the Jaguars were going 3 and out, it really, once Dameon Pierce was able to get going, he didn't stop. And that was when this Jaguars defense started to wear down. And you see a lot of the big runs from Dameon Pierce, some of the bigger catches from Dameon Pierce come out. So if the Jaguars offense can focus on staying on the field for a little bit longer than 3 to 5 plays, I think this Jaguars defense might be able to hold Jonathan Taylor to another unsuccessful day like they did last time they faced off in Jacksonville. Now, as a whole, I really want to give credit to this Jaguars secondary. This Jaguars secondary played very well, in my opinion. They limited this Texans offense to 140 whopping passing yards off of 16 completions. Nico Collins was somebody I was a little bit afraid of taking a little bit of advantage of Shaq Griffin. That really didn't happen to the most extent. And then also Brandon Cooks really didn't do a whole lot of things against this Jaguars defense. That was somebody I was very concerned about. He's averaged over 100 yards and a score, I believe, against the Jaguars in his career. He's still undefeated against the Jaguars, I might add, but that's a conversation for a different day. As a whole, this Jaguars team played very strange football. The defense played very well, but obviously they gave it up at the end, which, you allow 13 points, you should expect to win the football game. But this Jaguars defense did a good job. I want to give them credit as a whole. Unfortunately, once the game kind of wore down on them, they wore down and they started allowing Dameon Pierce to take over the game. But this Jaguars offense did almost everything they could to have a very good statistical day. But once it got to the red zone, it felt like it was a peewee football team out there, and they just didn't know what to do. Trevor Lawrence seemed like he didn't know what to do. He was forcing bad plays, and it was just weird stuff going on for this Jaguars offense in the red zone that has seemed to plague them this whole season. But hey, let me know what you guys thought of this game down in the comments section below. I would love to have that conversation with you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, and go Jaguars.
What? Yeah, I just work here.